A while back, a couple of friends of ours stopped by to visit. We've known Bob and Maria for most of our married lives. Maria worked with my wife Trina at a large, well-known travel agency. The company has offices in a number of states. Bob is a supervisor in a manufacturing plant. I'm an electrician and work in one of the local factories. I've worked there since I came home from the service around 8 years ago. The four of us were watching an old movie titled Same Time Next Year, which was about a man and woman who were lovers for many years. They were both married, but not to each other. They still loved each other and agreed to meet and be lovers every year around the same time for a week. The rest of the year, they would live their normal lives with their respective spouses and families. Our wives were crying at the end of one of the affairs when the couple had to depart and go home to their families. "What a crock of crap," I said. "They're both cheating on their families, and you two think it's so sad. They ought to be found in the arms of their lovers and shot," was my response. "Andy, how can you say such a thing?" replied Maria. "They were true lovers and only met once a year," she added. I spoke up. "So you two are saying that it's all right for me to go and have love with my old girlfriend once a year as long as Trina doesn't find out?" Trina was angry. "You jerk. This isn't about you and your old girlfriend Melissa. This is about people who are truly in love. I doubt you could ever understand that." Bob saw that tempers were getting out of hand and suggested, "Time out here. It's just a movie. We shouldn't be arguing over it." I asked Bob, "If that woman was your wife, would you say it was okay to have an affair once a year?" Bob replied, "If I found Trina doing that, I'd kick her out. And Trina, you had no right to bring Melissa into it just because she was my girlfriend before I met you. I didn't say anything about you and your old flame, Zach." Maria interjected, "Let's just drop the conversation about the movie. It's not worth arguing over." But I persisted. "I want to know Bob's answer. What would you do if Maria wanted to do the same thing as the woman in the movie?" Bob replied, "Listen, Andy, Maria would never do such a thing. I'm not going to answer a question based on assumptions. Maria is too nice a person to ever do that to our marriage." As I glanced over at the girls, I noticed a brief exchange between them that sent a chill down my spine. Maria got up and went to sit on her husband's lap and kissed him. It seemed like everything was fine in their happy minds. Trina, on the other hand, didn't smile at me. She got up and offered everyone another beverage. I turned off the movie, and the four of us went into the kitchen to play cards. It was always the men against the women. I have to admit it was a fun and competitive game. I have to admit that the chill made me think. In the following days, I did a lot of thinking. When I graduated from high school, I enlisted in the Army. I signed up for 3 years, with 2 of them being overseas. I went to our senior prom with my girlfriend Melissa. I truly believed I loved her. She was my first love and the first woman I ever made love to. I always thought we were a great couple, and would be together forever. However, I guess I was just too naive at the time. The last time we made love was a week before I was supposed to leave for the service. She never saw me off because she had another prom to attend. Her parents told her she could go to the prom with me as long as she also went to another dance with Eric. He was a geeky guy and was in college. There was some kind of event going on, and Eric asked Melissa to go with him. Melissa made the mistake of mentioning it to her mother. Don't get me wrong here. I didn't have anything against Eric except for him wanting to date my girlfriend. Unfortunately, his mother and Melissa's mother worked together and tried to set them up. It hurt me to know that Melissa would be dating Eric, but she said her mom said she had to go. She promised me she wouldn't even kiss him. I was overseas for about 4 months when I received a letter from my sister telling me that Melissa was pregnant. I couldn't believe it. Melissa had been writing to me since I left for basic training. Why didn't she ever mention it to me? Surely she knew, especially if my sister Jen knew. The only answer was that Eric got her pregnant. I was angry. I wrote her a letter, calling her every dirty word I could think of. Here I was, fighting in a war, and my girlfriend, soon-to-be ex-girlfriend, was at home, cheating on me and didn't even have the decency to tell me she was pregnant. I never wrote to her again after sending that letter. I told her not to waste her time writing to me either, because it was over between us, and I would throw her letters in the trash without even reading them. I told her that I hoped she and her child with Eric had a good life together. I did receive a letter from her, but I ripped it up and threw it in the trash. I didn't hear from her again while I was overseas. My sister did tell me that Melissa and Eric got married just before the baby was born. They lived in Eric's parents' house, and Eric took night classes at college to complete his degree. After hearing about the pregnancy, I became a hero. I wasn't brave, I was stupid. I didn't care whether I got killed or not. I was out there like some superhero, saving the lives of many homeless children. I didn't care about myself anymore. I figured I would go home in a body bag. I didn't care. I was just one stupid GI who thought his life was over. I couldn't believe it when my tour of duty was up. Not only was I alive, but I also received a number of commendations for valor. When I got home, the town threw me a celebration in my honor. I saw a lot of friends and old schoolmates. They all greeted me with handshakes. Handshakes and smiles greeted me as I arrived. I couldn't help but wonder if a certain woman would show up. I spotted her in the crowd with her baby carriage and husband. She turned around and left without even talking to me. I wasn't surprised considering the letter I wrote calling her a fool and a jerk. It's funny how our emotions can take over when we get angry. Seeing her made me feel sad, but I still held on to my resentment towards her. At the celebration, there was a lot of dancing. I noticed an old classmate sitting there and asked her to dance. It was Trina, one of the most attractive girls in our class. She had always been out of my league and had dated a popular athlete from our school. He was rumored to be every woman's dream. His name was Zach Carter, an all-state football quarterback and the most likely to succeed. I heard he went off to college after graduation. Trina, on the other hand, went to the local junior college and got a degree in business. She ended up working for a big travel agency. Last I heard, Zach was living in another state. I guess he broke things off with Trina and ended up marrying a wealthy woman. As we danced, we reminisced about old times. It didn't take long for us to realize that we had both been dumped by our previous partners. We got along well and eventually started dating. Looking back, I can admit that we were both on the rebound in our love lives. But after 6 months of dating, we decided to get married. I know it may have seemed impulsive, but when you've been hurt, you tend to act differently. I got a job at a local factory and took classes to become an electrician. Trina and I actually got along quite well. We had a mutual respect for each other and enjoyed many of the same things. I could even say that we loved each other, in our own way. Our love was passionate and she wasn't afraid to try new things. I couldn't help but wonder where she learned some of the things we did. One day I asked her, and she laughed, pulling out a bunch of women's magazines that listed many of the things we had tried. Our relationship may have been more about rebounding than true love, but it was still better than many others we knew. Life was good, and we often went out with different groups of friends. One day, while out with Bob and Maria, Trina asked me if I wanted to go to a convention that her travel agency was hosting. Every 2 years, our agency has a convention in a different state where we have offices, she explained. Last time it was in Ohio, and this time it's in Florida. It's usually the first or second week of May. Spouses are welcome to attend, even though it's mostly just meetings and presentations about the latest travel destinations. Trina looked at me with hopeful eyes and asked, "Would you like to go?" I hesitated, not wanting to use a week of my vacation time for work-related events. "Are any of your other co-workers going, that you could go with?" I asked. "I'm going," Maria chimed in. "Bob can't get the time off and wouldn't be interested anyway." Trina nodded. "Usually it's me, Barb, another girl from the office, and myself who go together. Sounds good to me." "It will give me a week to get hot and horny for you until you get back," I replied. Trina kind of smiled and she and Maria left for the women's room. I never did understand why women can't go to the restroom by themselves. After they left, Bob and I talked about how lucky we were to not have to attend such a boring seminar. When Trina came home from the seminar, we made love, had love, or screwed like minks, whatever you want to call it. It was some of the best love we had since we got married. Anyway, Trina got pregnant. I was one happy father. My little girl was born just in time for Valentine's Day. I couldn't have received a better Valentine's Day present. We were now a family, and things really seemed to change for the better. Trina took a leave of absence for 3 months after the baby was born. My sister Jen offered to babysit for us, which worked out perfectly. Little Renee was my pride and joy. After getting off work, I liked nothing better than to hold my little girl and watch her play. About the only thing that seemed to disrupt my little world was when Trina and I had an argument. For some reason, she always brought up Melissa. Of course, I'd counter it by bringing up Zach. It was really silly to argue over two people who were no longer a part of our lives. But when we get angry, we tend to bring up the past. One day, when I got home before Trina, I asked Jen if she ever saw Melissa. I see her in the grocery store once in a while. She has the sweetest little girl named Andrea. I know you don't want me to talk about her, but she loves her daughter, even though she doesn't seem happy, Jen spoke. Well, the next time you see her, tell her I have a daughter too, I replied. That's rude, Andy. I won't say such a thing, Jen said. A few minutes later, Trina came in, so we knew we had to change the subject. For some reason, I can't seem to forget about Melissa. Maybe it's because deep down I still care for her. Maybe it's because she was my first love. I wonder if other people feel the same way about their first love. Do we ever truly get over them? Did Trina ever get over Zach? There's always something to think about when it comes to first loves. Time was flying by and it was time for Trina to attend another one of her seminars. I really and truly didn't want to go, and neither did Bob. Besides, I had a little 2-year-old girl to take care of. At least that's how I explained it to Trina. She and Maria went with their other friend. When she got home, we had amazing love again. I was even thinking of telling her to go to more seminars. Every time she came home, our love was always the best. Again, about 2 months later, she found out she was pregnant. 7 months later, our second daughter was born. We named her Ashley. Valentine's Day was starting to become a special day in our household. Life went on and we continued with our normal routine of living and arguing. Funny, but the longer we were married, the less we seemed to have in common. I often wondered if we would be divorced if it wasn't for my 2 sweet daughters, Renee and Ashley. I finally got my journeyman card as an electrician. It meant more time working, but also more money. My free time was usually spent with the girls. I realized that in no time they would be grown up. I wanted to spend as much time with them as possible. Trina and I got along, but it really didn't seem like love. I know I keep saying that, but it just seemed like we were going through the motions. It appeared like most of my friends had the same kind of marriages. We all seemed to put on a good front, but behind closed doors, we were more like 2 strangers living in the same house. I tried a number of times to joke and tease with Trina, but it usually ended up in an argument. When she was planning her next seminar, I told her I would go with her. I thought it might strengthen our marriage if I showed more interest in her job. At first, she seemed agitated that I was going, but a couple of days later, she lightened up. A few days after that, Bob called me and asked if I wanted to go to Canada and go fishing with him while the girls were at their seminar. I tried to explain to him that I had promised Trina I would go with her. Believe me, Bob, I would much rather go fishing than attend a travel seminar. Just tell Trina, I'm sure she would understand. I already have the lodge reserved, or I would change the date. I go fishing every time Maria goes to the seminar. One of the guys couldn't make it this year, so we have an opening. It was Maria who suggested I ask you. Please at least mention it to Trina, replied Bob. I was playing with the girls on the floor when Trina got home. The first thing she did was bring up the fishing trip. I think Maria mentioned it to her. I thought, Andy, she said, I know about the fishing trip to Canada. I think you should go. Really, Trina? I asked. I promised you I would go to the seminar with you. Look, Andy, she said, it's the first vacation you've had since you finished your classes and became an electrician. You earned it. And I'm not going to take it away from you and have you sit in a bunch of meetings. Call Bob and tell him to save you a spot in the car. She was smiling at me. I couldn't believe how nice she was being. I thought, I told her I would be back in time for our usual sexcapade when she got back from her trip. I quickly got up and called Bob. I also got laid that night by Trina. Maybe, just maybe, she was changing. The fishing trip was great, It was just what I needed to get away and relax for the best part of a week. My sister watched the kids while we were both gone. I asked her to keep them an extra night so Trina and I could have our sexual romp. Jen just laughed and said she would see me the next day. I had Trina on the bed, making love, well, more like having passionate love, with her within minutes of her coming in the door. I remember telling her we were going to try for a baby when she got back from her trip. We were trying for a boy that night. I don't remember how many times we tried, but it resulted in our third pregnancy. Andrew Jr. was born the following February. All three of our children were born in February, within 1 day of each other. As soon as Andy Jr. was born, I had a vasectomy. I figured we had 2 daughters and a son. Elle told Trina that 3 kids were enough and I wasn't going to use condoms. She didn't seem happy or sad about it. Of course, why should she? Surely, she also thought 3 kids were enough. About a year after Andy's birth, Jen told me that Melissa wanted to talk to me privately. What about Jen? What could she possibly want after all these years? I didn't know. She had filed for divorce from Eric, but I wasn't sure if that was the reason. She seemed scared. I think she needs to talk to you. Do you realize that Trina will be angry if I talk to Melissa? She never liked her. I guess I had built her up too much years ago. I know I would be upset if I found Trina talking to Zach. Heck, I don't even know where he lives. Look, Andy, the last thing I want is to interfere in your marriage. Maybe you can call her from my house or even meet her there one time. We're not talking about love here, just a conversation. I always liked her, and I know she wouldn't ask to talk to you if it wasn't important. I went to see Melissa the next day at Jen's house. I felt like I was doing something wrong just by going there. One part of me kept telling me to go home, and the other part wanted to see Mel again. Now I was struggling in my own mind whether I was doing the right thing. I pulled up in front of Jen's house and sat there for a minute, trying to gather my thoughts and wondering what I would say. I felt like a nervous kid as I got out of my car and went to the door. I rang the doorbell. Any other time I would have walked right in, but today was different. Jen came to the door and asked me why I rang the doorbell. I didn't have an answer for her as I walked in. The tension could have been cut with a knife as I looked up and saw Melissa, as beautiful as I remembered, standing in Jen's kitchen. She started crying and brought her hands up to her face. I was at a loss at what I should do. I never expected to find her crying. I went to her and held her hands as I saw the tears streaming down her face. She spoke first. "I'm so sorry, Andy. I'm so sorry." She kept repeating herself over and over again. She was shaking as I put my arms around her to help calm her down. I had no idea why she was acting like this, but it was getting to me. 10 years ago, I would have been glad to see her cry after what she did to me. But now it was different. Maybe time had helped heal old wounds. I was holding her in my arms and smelled the familiar scent of Melissa. "It's okay, Mel. That was 10 years ago. We have both moved on with our lives," I said. "No, you don't understand. I promised Eric I would never see you again. That was our agreement. But I had to break it. I had to break it for Andrea, my little girl," replied Mel. "You're right, Mel. I don't understand. What are you trying to tell me?" Mel had calmed down some, and Jen brought her a cup of tea. The 3 of us were sitting at the table when Jen offered to go into another room and leave Mel and me alone. "No, please stay, Jen. I think you need to hear this too," I said. "Andrea, my little girl, has a bad case of jaundice because of liver failure. She needs to undergo a liver transplant, and the doctor said that family members are the best match. Adults only have to give a part of their liver, and it will grow back over time. The problem is, I don't match up, and we don't have any other family members who do." Jen asked, "What about Eric? Has he been tested? What about members of his family?" Mel looked at me and said, "Eric isn't Andrea's father." "You are, Andy." She started crying again. I was shocked and had so many questions. "What?" I asked. "Why didn't you ever tell me that she was my child?" "My God, Mel, I can't believe you would hide such a thing. When you found out I was pregnant, you never gave me a chance to explain. You wrote me and called me a jerk and a fool, among other things. You told me you never wanted to see me again. I wrote you a letter anyway explaining everything, but you never wrote me back." Oh God, I was mad when I received that letter and threw it away. I can't believe I was so stupid. I've been mad at you all these years. Why did you marry Eric? Does he know that Andrea may not be his child? Mel smiled lightly and said, "You're so crazy. That's one of the things I always loved about you." Of course, Eric knew Andrea wasn't his child. We never had love until after we were married. I told him that you were the father and didn't want anything to do with me. It's what you told me. Eric really cared for me. He really is a wonderful man, but he also has pride. He agreed to marry me as long as I told everyone that he was my child's father. I honestly didn't know what else to do. You wanted nothing to do with me, and I was an 18-year-old girl. Eric and I got married, but I had to promise never to see you again and to let everyone believe that Eric was Andrea's father. I still loved you, and Eric knew it. He is a good man, and we did get along fine until a couple of months ago when Andrea was diagnosed with the liver problem. You are her last hope. I had to choose whether to tell you or not. Of course, Eric said if I told you that Andrea was your child, that we could no longer stay married since his family and friends would know the truth. I didn't have a choice. My child's life is at stake, and she comes first in my life. Will you get tested to see if you could be a possible donor? I could see tears of hope in her eyes. This wasn't a small decision. My marriage was most likely on the line also. I don't know how Trina would react to it. Me giving part of my liver to Mel's child. I knew I had to do what was right, regardless of the circumstances and outcome. Mel, of course I'll get tested to save Andrea's life. Tell the doctor to set me up with an appointment and I'll be there. All three of us had tears in our eyes. Mel came to me and gave me a hug. She whispered in my ear, "I love you so much, always have and always will." Mel immediately got on the phone and called the hospital to set me up with an appointment to be tested. My appointment was set up for Monday. I figured it would give me a day or so to break the news to Trina. I guess I was really between a rock and a hard place. I believed Mel when she said Andrea was my daughter. When I get tested, I would know for sure, and she had nothing to gain and a lot to lose by lying to me. I hugged both Jen and Mel and headed for home, a very confused man. Finding out that Andrea was my daughter threw me into turmoil. I had a child who was 10 years old, and I had never even seen her. The woman I had always loved was back in my life. I had a wife at home who despised my old girlfriend, and I had 3 more children at home. If I wasn't so young, I'd probably have a heart attack. I was playing with the kids when Trina got home. It was hard to tell what kind of mood she was in because it changed so often. I decided to wait a while before talking with her. I knew she was going to blow a gasket, and I didn't want the kids to see it happen. They had seen their mother and me argue too many times already. On Sunday, I took the kids to see my mother. I told Trina I would be back in a few minutes, that I had something to discuss with her. When I got back, she lit into me. "What's so darn important that we can't talk in front of the kids?" asked Trina. I told her that I had talked to Melissa yesterday and that we needed to discuss something. Trina interrupted me, asking why I went to see her, and if she wasn't getting enough at home. I told her that it was something serious and that Mel's daughter needed a liver transplant or she would die. Trina seemed more concerned, but I could tell she was wondering why Mel had called me. I explained that the girl needed part of an adult liver to survive, and that a family member had the closest chance for a match. Trina then asked if Mel had told me I was the father. I replied, yes, she called to tell me that I was the little girl's father. I had no idea. I reassured Trina that I was going to see if I could help the girl, and that I had an appointment to be tested tomorrow. Trina then brought up our family and the potential risks and challenges. I assured her that I had thought about it, and that I was willing to do whatever it takes to save the girl's life. Have you given any thought to us? Trina looked more mad than concerned. She had a right to be mad. This was just thrust upon us. But the fact remains that Andrea needs help to survive. Listen, knowing that I can possibly save a little girl's life, and also the fact that she could well be my daughter, gives me no options. I have to do it no matter what you say. You put your girlfriend and her daughter ahead of your own family. You are a poor excuse for a man and a father You'll pretend that you said that from your anger. If our kids needed the transplant, I'd be there for them, and you know it. I'll know from the tests tomorrow if Mel's little girl is my daughter, and if she is, I'm going to do everything I can to help save her. I'm also going to be in her life whether you like it or not. I just hope you can stop your hatred and try to understand. For the record, Andrew, I'm against it. You may love her, but she's not related to me, and I don't care what happens to her. I have my own kids to worry about, and if she lives, I don't want you bringing her into my house. You're one nasty jerk. I can't believe what I ever saw in you. I'm going to help this little girl if I possibly can. We'll see what happens after that. Is it the little girl you're worried about or her mother? You never did get over her, did you? You're pitiful, Andrew. Really pitiful. Go fudge your old girlfriend and give your liver to her daughter. Maybe she'll take you back after I kick your butt out. I'll be watching you and gathering evidence. Better watch your step. I picked up the kids and brought them home. Trina came in later and hardly talked to me. I knew life was going to be tough from here on out. I got tested and was told to wait around for an hour while they ran their tests. I went into the room to see Andrea. Mel was sitting there talking to her little girl. Andrea was so pretty. She did look a lot like her mother. She was 10, but she was tiny due to the liver problem. She didn't look any older than my daughter Renee, who was 6. I walked up to the bed and it kind of startled Mel. She quickly turned and saw me standing there. She had the prettiest smile on her face. "Thanks for coming," she said. I looked over at Andrea. "Are you my guardian angel?" she asked me. "Mommy said my guardian angel would be here today to help me get what I needed. Are you him?" I smiled at her. "I'm not exactly an angel, but I am here, hoping I can give you what you need." "I'll know in just a few minutes. You're Andy, aren't you? Mommy said I was named after you. Did you know that? I should tell you that Mommy and I talk all the time. Me and her have secrets. When I get better, I'll share them with you. Mom said I could. I might look young because of this disease, but I'm 10 and pretty smart. Do you have other kids?" The way she said that made me wonder. Did she know the truth about me? She did say other kids, didn't she? She talked like she was so smart, but her body looked so fragile. Fragile. God, I hope I was the perfect match for her. "Yes, sweetheart. I have 3 kids all younger than you at home. After you get well, I'll bring them to see you." That would be nice. I like kids. I don't have any brothers or sisters to play with, so maybe I could borrow yours. She smiled. I could tell she was feeling weak, and she had these tubes coming out of her. "Honey, close your eyes and rest a little bit. You need to build up your strength." "I'll keep Andy company," spoke Mel. "I bet you will, Mommy," said Andrea as she smiled and dozed off to sleep. Does she really know who I am, Mel? How much does she actually know? I asked. Mel smiled. It was so nice to see. Andrea and I have secrets, just like she told you. She will tell you what they are when she gets better. Until then, you'll just have to guess. Mel accompanied me back to the lab. We were asked to wait in the doctor's office. He wanted to talk to us. "Mr. Connors, you are a very good match for Andrea. A perfect match would be that of a child, but we can take a portion of your liver and implant it into the girl." "Doctor, she's my daughter." "I know that now. I would like for you to refer to her as my daughter." The doctor smiled. "Well, Mr. Connors, your daughter will have a chance at a full recovery. It might take a couple of months for her body to completely accept the implant, but she is young and should heal fast." "What about me, Doc? What will I be going through?" "You will be put under while we remove a portion of your liver. When you wake up, you will feel like you have just been run over by a truck. If all goes well, you will need bed rest for a month and won't be able to return to work for at least 6 weeks. Over the next year, your body will heal itself." "Are you serious, Doc?" "No, you wanted the truth, and I believe in telling it to you. Your daughter is very lucky to have you in her life. I honestly don't think she could have made it another month." Now for the bad news. "Bad news? Are you telling me that you just told me the good news?" The doctor laughed. "Yes, that was the good news. The bad news is we need to operate as soon as possible. I was hoping you could come back tomorrow morning for the operation. I'll need for you to give me whatever documents I need, especially if I'll be off work for a period of time. Agreed. Wednesday it is. I'll have my secretary give you the documents you will need. Till Wednesday, Mr. Connors? Just call me Andy, Doc. Looks like we will be seeing a lot of each other. Mel grabbed onto my arm as we walked back to Andrea's room. She had tears in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. I don't know what to say, Andy. You're putting your life on hold for a few months for my daughter. I'm doing it for my daughter, too. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't help her. About you and me, Mel, I don't know what's gonna happen. I am married, and I would never cheat on my wife. I have always loved you, too. But we each have our own lives now. No matter what happens, I want us to remain friends and for Andrea to be a part of my life. I leaned over the bed and kissed little Andrea on the forehead. Sleep tight, my beautiful daughter. Daddy loves you. Tears welled up in my eyes as I left the hospital. After leaving the hospital, I went to my workplace to inform my boss about the situation. He was surprised and didn't know that any of my children were sick. I didn't try to explain it to him, but I thanked him for helping me with my paperwork and insurance. He assured me that my job would be waiting for me when I am able to return. When I got home, Trina was waiting for me. "Is it your child?" she asked. "Yes, Andrea is my daughter. The surgery is on Wednesday. I have already taken care of the insurance and talked to my workplace. I will be off for at least 6 weeks, but I will be receiving sick pay." "So you're really going through with it?" Trina asked. "What about our kids? Are you gonna tell them about your other child?" "Our kids are 2, 4, and 6. If I explain to them that I can save another child's life, they will understand and support me. They know that I will always be there for them. I will talk to them tonight so they know why they won't be seeing me for a while." Jen said she would help in any way she can until I come home. "Oh yeah, your great sister Jen will be there," Trina said sarcastically. "You know, sometimes she can be a pain, but she's like a second mother to our kids, and you know it. If you don't want her help, just tell her, and she will leave you alone." Trina went into the other room. I called the 2 girls in to talk to them. Andy Jr. came along, but he wouldn't understand what we were talking about. I told the kids that they have an older sister from a different mother who is very sick. I did my best to explain the situation to them. The girls were almost in tears. "Save her, Daddy. You have to help her if you can," Renee said. "I will, honey. I won't be home for a few days until I feel better. I will call you and talk to you every day until I come back home. After your sister gets better, I will take you to see her. Aunt Jen will help take care of you while I'm gone. I want you to be good for her and Mommy, okay? We'll be good, Daddy. We promise." On Wednesday, I went to the hospital. Before reporting in, I took a moment to see Andrea. She was nervous but had a smile on her face. "Hi, Andy. I'm glad you could make it. I couldn't do this without you. I think she has a little bit of my personality in her. She's a sweet, caring little girl. I've only known her for a couple of days, but I'm so proud of her." I turned around and saw Mel looking nervous. "Everything will be fine, Mel. Andre is ready and so am I." She leaned forward and kissed me, a real loving kiss. "Thank you, Andy. I'll never forget what you are doing for our daughter." I looked back over to Andrea, and I know she heard what her mother had just said. She just smiled at me as to say, "Thank you, Daddy." I reported to my room and got prepared for the surgery. When I awoke after the surgery, I remember the doctor telling me how I would feel. He didn't lie. I felt terrible. A nurse came in and smiled at me and ran her little tests. I told her how I felt, and she increased the pain medication. I looked around the room, and no one was there. I knew Mel would be with her daughter, but I was hoping Trina would have a change of heart and come to see me. I slept, and when I woke up, I heard voices. My sister Jen and Mel were talking. "Hi, little brother. How are you feeling?" "You look like crap," she laughed. We always teased each other. She was as good a sister as anyone could possibly have. She was married but didn't have any kids. I don't know why. It was just something we didn't talk about. "Jen, please don't make me laugh. It hurts like heck. How did it go? Is Andre gonna be okay?" Mel spoke. "It's too early to really tell, but the doctor is really optimistic. He said the surgery went well and now we just have to pray that her body accepts the liver. It will accept my liver. I don't give my body parts to just anyone. I started to laugh. Oh, that hurt. I can't even laugh without the pain. Andy, I'm forever indebted to you for what you did. You saved my daughter's life. Our daughter's life. She's still my daughter, even if we aren't married. I'll expect to see her on a regular basis. In fact, my kids can't wait to meet their older sister. What about Trina? You know, I tried to talk to her a few times throughout the years, but she would always walk away from me. I just wanted to be friends, but she said no way. I wish we could all be friends, but it doesn't look like it's gonna happen. I sure hope Andrea gets to be close with your other kids. Trina has never told me she spoke to you. As far as Andrea goes, I will bring my kids to see her. In fact, they told me they couldn't wait to see her, and they also told me to make her well. I promised them I would. The three of us talked for a while, and the doctor came in to see me. Jen and Mel both said they would see me later. I talked with the doctor and he updated me on both my health and Andrea's. Even though I felt like crap, I called my house to talk to the kids. Trina answered the phone and asked me how I was doing. Fine, I guess. I just called to say hi to the kids. I really didn't want to do a lot of talking right now, especially to Trina. Well, I'll probably stop and see you after work tomorrow. It was just too busy to get away today, remarked Trina. She handed the phone to the kids and they were each on an extension talking a mile a minute. I told them I would talk to them the next day, but just wanted to let them know I was doing okay and missed them. How's the girl, Daddy? Is she better? Asked Renee. As far as I know, she's doing better. I have to rest now, girls. So, kiss Andy for me, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you all so much and miss you. We love you too, Daddy. Bye. Trina did come to see me the next day. She asked how I was and how Andrea was doing. She really didn't seem concerned. It was like she asked me more because she thought she should. She spent most of her time telling me about a special meeting she might have to attend in Chicago. It was a month or so away, so I would be out of the hospital by then and could watch the kids. She said my sister Jen was with our kids now so she could come and see me. Her visit left me wondering if she wanted to stay married to me. I had nothing to pin it on, but it felt like she was hiding something. It wasn't like I had a sixth sense, just a feeling. She kissed me lightly on the lips and said she would be back again in a couple of days, then got up and left. A little while later, Mel came to see me, and the atmosphere of the room seemed to change. I knew then that I had married the wrong woman, but it was too late. I made my bed, and now I would do my best to make my marriage work for the sake of my kids. There's nothing I wouldn't do for them, including living in a near-loveless marriage. I did call my kids each night and talk to them like I had promised. It was so good to hear them arguing about who should talk to me. Even little Andy got his turn on the phone. At least his first words were "Dada." The next few days were rather uneventful. Trina did stop by and so did my sister Jen. Of course, Mel stopped by all the time. She was practically living at the hospital between seeing Andrea and me. I knew when I left the hospital, I would miss seeing her, but I had to try and make my marriage work. A couple more days passed, and I got a few visitors from work. Plus, of course, my mom came to see me. She said she was there when I was taken out of recovery, but I was out like a light. My mom had been there every day since the operation. She never said much about it, except she did visit Andrea and said I did the right thing. I knew from the look on her face that she accepted Andrea as her granddaughter as well. She didn't have to tell me. It was the way grandmas talk about their grandchildren. I asked Mel about Eric and her soon-to-be divorce. He's moving to California, she said. You know, he's always been sort of a geek, but a good geek. He's a wonderful person, and I will miss him. We agreed to remain friends. He's big into computers, and said he found a job in Silicon Valley. He'll make a good husband to the right woman someday. It's just not me. What exactly do you do for a living, Mel? I asked, how do you expect to survive? As I mentioned, Eric is a computer whiz. He set me up with a computer. I have a home-based business doing billing for a couple of medical facilities. I make my own hours as long as the work can be completed. Work gets done on time. Eric and I have drawn up an agreement where he is leaving me the house and furnishings. Of course, I'll still have the payments, We each have our own car, so there is no problem there. We split our savings after paying off our credit cards. There won't be any support. It wouldn't be right for him to pay for a child that wasn't his if we're not married. She had watery eyes. It was out of respect for Eric. Later that evening, I received a visit from Eric. I was totally surprised. I wasn't sure what to say. I hope he didn't want to fight, because he would be a sure winner. Andy, I just stopped in to say thanks. Thanks? I don't understand. You saved Andrea's life. You'll find that she's the sweetest little girl, and I'm gonna miss her. I'm leaving for California tomorrow. I just talked to the doctors, and Andrea's body seems to have accepted your liver. She's starting to get her color back. Eric, maybe you and Mel can work it out. I know she has respect for you. Andy, let's not kid each other. If she loved me like she does you, I'd gladly stay married to her. I've played second fiddle for nearly 10 years, hoping she would get over you. But she never did, and probably never will. We've had a good marriage, but I want my wife to love me, not just respect me. Can you understand that? We don't argue and we do things together, but her heart belongs to you. I can no longer live like this, especially since everyone will know that Andrea is not my daughter by blood. So take care of my family. Don't worry about me. Computers are my first love, and I'll be in Silicon Valley. Thanks again, old-timer, for giving Andrea another chance at life. You really are a good person. Eric, I'm so sorry. I really don't know what to say. What about Andrea? I know she'll miss you. You're the only father she's known. I should tell you that my relationship with Mel was one of respect. We decided from the beginning that my name would not be on the birth certificate. Under the title father, she had your name put in and said you were overseas, so they didn't need your signature. I know that Mel and Andrea have talked and have their own secrets. My guess is she knows about you and Mel. I'm sure she will miss me, as I know I will miss her. It's the reason she will need you in her life. She will need a father figure in her life. Why should it not be her real father? Again, thank you, and take care of them. They will both need you. Before I could say anything, Eric turned around and walked out the door. I was lying there thinking how complicated my life has become. At home I had a wife and a so-so marriage with 3 wonderful kids. On the other side was an ex-girlfriend and daughter to whom I had just donated a kidney. Geez, not a very good situation to be in, I thought. It wasn't long before I was able to go home. I wasn't allowed to lift anything over 5 pounds. My girls understood, but Andy didn't know any better and wanted to be held. At least he settled for climbing up next to me and sitting on the better couch. My girls were like 2 little mommies waiting on me hand and foot. Trina went to work every day, and when she got home we were pleasant to each other. Down to Jen stopped by for a couple of hours each day to see if I needed anything. She was a great help to me. I also talked to my mom every day to keep her updated on my condition. She took my 3 kids every couple of days so I could get some needed rest. I was healing well but didn't want to overdo it. I didn't call Mel directly for the first week I was home. Jen would stop at the hospital or call Mel to see how Andrea was doing. She was to be in the hospital for an extra week. The doctor was surprised at how well she was doing. Her color had returned, and she was gaining weight. He was extremely optimistic about her condition. After Andrea was sent home to recover, my girls wanted to go meet her. I was still not allowed to drive, so we all got in the van, and Jen drove us to Mel's place. I wasn't sure about going there, but with Jen and the kids, I figured there shouldn't be a big problem. Mel's house was nice, well-furnished, and clean. I told the kids that Andrea was a sick little girl, so they had to be quiet. Mel smiled when she saw my kids. She introduced herself and told them they could call her Mel. She took the 2 girls into Andrea's bedroom and introduced them to a smiling Andrea. I was surprised when I saw her. She was no longer jaundiced, the yellowish color due to liver problems, but had a beautiful, clear complexion. "Hi," said Andrea. "I'm your big sister. Well, older sister anyway." She smiled when she saw that Renee was almost as tall as she was. "Don't I have a little brother too?" "Where's he at?" asked Andrea. Jen came into the room holding little Andy. "Were you looking for this little guy?" replied Jen. I couldn't believe what Andrea said next. I know I'll never forget it. The things that come out of the mouth of kids. Hi, my cute little brother from a different mother. I'm your big and older sister, Andrea. Andy smiled and Jen seated him on the bed, and he crawled up and sat next to his new big sister. I had tears in my eyes. I couldn't help it, but I wasn't alone when I looked over and saw Mel and Jen also smiling. I knew now that Andrea had been told that I was her birth father. We spent the next couple of hours letting the kids enjoy their time together. The kids were sad when we told them that it was time for us to leave, and that Andrea needed her rest. The girls said they weren't going to leave unless I promised they could come back again. Of course I told them they'd see a lot of each other. As we left, I knew there was going to be hell to pay that night when I told Trina that we went to Mel's. Trina no sooner got in the door when the girls told her they met their big sister today. At least Trina had the good sense not to start screaming at me until the kids were off to bed. I was called every name in the book. I tried to explain that nothing happened and Jen was there with me. Of course, Trina accused me of having Jen lie for me and covering up an affair. My God, Trina, why can't you believe that we could just be friends? I have never cheated on you and never will. My family is too important to me to just go out and have an affair. Then you accuse me of having Jen lie for me. Believe me, Jen would never stand for infidelity even from her brother. I told you that the kids wanted to meet each other, and they all had a good time. Why do you look at everything so dark? Not everyone is out to cheat on their spouse. I promise you I wouldn't. She yelled a little more and we went to bed. We still slept together, and I tried to lie close to Trina, but she would not have any of it. As time went by, I healed up pretty well. The doctor told me to wait another month before going back to work. I called the plant and let them know. Trina reminded me of her trip to Chicago in a couple of weeks. She would be gone for the whole week. I figured I wouldn't have any problem watching the kids. I could lift Andy now, so he was happy. The following week, our friends Bob and Maria stopped by to watch a movie and play cards. The girls chose the movie's same time next year. This brings you up to date from the beginning of this story. As I mentioned in the beginning, something went on between Maria and Mel. I kept thinking about the looks they gave each other. I saw Trina whisper something to Maria before she and Bob left. I knew something wasn't right, but I wasn't sure what. Things weren't really good between us since the operation. We hadn't made love for a while now. I thought I'd give it a shot. As we got into bed, I put my hand on her lower belly and rubbed softly in nice, even circular motions. At first, she pushed my hand away, but I kept trying. I slid my hand down into her underwear and began to rub her soft mound. "Are you up for it?" she asked me. "You're going to be gone for a week, and I don't want to wait until you get back." I pushed my hardening crotch against her thigh. "Part of me is up for it," I replied. She slipped off her underwear and spread her legs. I slid 2 fingers into her moist privates. She was slowly gyrating as I fingered her. So good. Been so long." "Keep doing it," she said. I turned my body at an angle to hers and lifted one of her legs. She spread her legs further apart as I slid my hard crotch into her. Her gyrations were becoming faster as I pumped my hard crotch into her. It felt hot and moist. "More, baby? Give me more. Feels so good. Been so long. More, baby, more," she kept saying. Trina was always like this when we made love. She has never called me her baby or lover any other time. It was like her own fantasy name for me. "Come on, lover. Give me more crotch. Liquid in me. I want your baby," she moaned. I was surprised to hear her say that. I had gotten a vasectomy last year after our baby was born. I remembered this was how she acted after returning from each trip, but this time she hadn't left yet, and I was sterile. I grabbed her leg and pushed my crotch deep inside of her, letting my liquid fill her. She was gyrating and I could feel her climax. She screamed out, "Good, baby." "Oh, so good. I love it so much." "You're the best," moaned Trina. I felt her spasm around my crotch as she pumped me dry. One thing I have to say about Trina is that she is great when it comes to love. I often wonder why her love doesn't extend into our daily life. It's only during lovemaking that she seems loving. The next morning she left for work and I was straightening up the house, something I didn't help with often enough. She had some folded clothes on her dresser and I was putting them in her drawer. I noticed a packet of birth control pills. When did she start taking these? I had the vasectomy over a year ago. I took them out and set them on the dresser. I opened them to see if she had been taking them, and she had. I knew I was going to question her about it tonight. God, I sure hope she has a good reason for using birth control. Our marriage was already on edge. I looked around for anything else that might look suspicious, but didn't find anything. Neither of us used the computer much at home, and we shared the same email address. There was nothing out of the ordinary there. I checked some of our past phone bills, but they looked fine. Maybe I was getting paranoid. When Trina arrived home that evening, I confronted her about the birth control pills. Why were you going through my drawers? You had no right, right? I live here just like you. I wasn't snooping. After the great love we had last night, I thought I would help straighten up the house, and was just putting your clothes away when I spotted the pills. Are you gonna explain to me why you're taking them knowing I had a vasectomy? Ejek, you say you trust me, and then give me the 3rd degree. I'll tell you why I have to take the pills. A few months back, I was having trouble with my periods, and I went to see my doctor. She suggested I take the pills to help regulate my cycle, so I would be more regular. Why didn't you tell me you were having female problems? What would you have done? Prescribe me pills or tell me to go to the doctor just like I did? Besides, you were too worried about your other family at the time. I didn't want to bother you with my medical problem. That's uncalled for, Trina. You're my wife and you mean a lot to me. I'm sorry I doubted you, but I was worried when I saw the pills. I was afraid. I was afraid you might be having an affair. I'm sorry. Okay, so now you know why I'm taking the pills. It's not because I want to, but my doctor prescribed them. I felt better after talking to her. I will admit I still had doubts, but I wanted to believe her. On Thursday night, we made love again. It was almost an instant replay of the other day. She called me lover and baby, and I filled her with pleasure. Doesn't get much better than that. On Friday morning, she was in a great mood. She kissed the kids and me goodbye before leaving for her trip to Chicago. I told her to hurry back so we could continue where we left off. On Saturday, I took the kids to see Mel and Andrea. We spent the day together like one big happy family. I wished my life with Trina was like this, instead of constantly fighting. There were feelings between me and Mel, but we both knew better than to act on them. On Sunday, I was watching TV with the kids when there was a knock on the door. I answered it and saw 2 old school friends, April and Mandy. They graduated with Trina and me. They were gathering information for our upcoming high school reunion. They got our address from Melissa. I had forgotten she mentioned it to me. I invited the women in and made us all some tea. We caught up on the usual, how are you? And what's new? April spoke first. So, Andy, tell me what's new in your life and where you work for our book. I explained a few things about my time in the service and my current job. I wasn't sure if Melissa had told them about my surgery, so I left it out for now. They then asked about Trina. I told them about the travel agency she worked at. Mandy looked surprised. Oh my god, that's so weird. What's weird about working at a travel agency? I asked. It's just that her ex-boyfriend Zach Carter also works at the same travel agency in Chicago. That is so weird. Old friends both working for the same company but in different states. How do you know that, Mandy? Did you talk to him? No. We talked to his mother last week. She told us all about him and how successful and powerful he is. I remember in high school, when all the girls wanted to date him, his mother says he's still in great shape and exercises every day. Can I have a copy of his profile? I think Trina would love to get in touch with him. I actually want the information for myself, not Trina. I have a feeling she already knows about Zach firsthand. Sure, Andy, I have an extra copy of his profile, but you might have a hard time getting in touch with him. Why is that? His wife is a state senator in Illinois, according to Zach's mother. You'll probably have to pass an inspection just to see them, laughed Mandy. I laughed along with them, but inside I was burning up. After getting Zach's profile, I said goodbye to my old classmates. I thought about calling Bob to chat and see if he knew anything about Zach, but I decided against it. I didn't want to involve Maria just in case I needed information from her. Instead, I called Trina's hotel room in Chicago. Room in Chicago. The phone rang 5 times before Trina answered it. She seemed to be breathing a little hard. "Hello?" she said. "Well, hi there, dear wife. How are you doing this fine morning?" "Why are you calling me, Andy? We said you should never call unless it's an emergency. Are the kids all right?" "The kids are fine, but their dad's a bit upset." "Why did you call, Andy?" "I don't have time for your silly games. This is Sunday? You don't have meetings on Sunday, do you?" "Oh, I forgot. You're having one of your secret meetings with Zach." "Did I interrupt your private session?" "I'm so sorry. That's enough, Andy. I've heard enough of your nonsense. We'll talk about this when I get home next week." "You stupid jerk." I can hear him in the background. "What's going on now, baby? Is your lover boy touching you right now?" Surely you can't talk and engage in sexual activity at the same time. "I'm gonna hang up, Andy. We'll talk about this when I get home. You talk to me now, or I'll burn this house down and then come to Chicago and confront your boyfriend." I heard Zach in the background whispering to Trina. He didn't have the sense to be quiet. "Will you tell your boyfriend to be quiet, or I'll finish this conversation with his wife, the senator." "Please, Andy, don't call her." I heard her say something to Zach. "Zach, take your hands off me. He knows you're here. We can't hide it anymore. He's gonna call your wife if I don't talk to him now." "How long have you been seeing him?" "Since you don't want to answer me, I figure it's been around 7 years. No wonder you come home and want to have sex. You couldn't resist him, could you? You might have wanted to have his child, and cover it up by sleeping with me." "Please, Andy, I can't think right now. Please, let's talk later. Whose children am I raising? Mine or your lover's? Answer me. Whose children am I raising?" "Please, Andy, I don't know. I honestly don't know." "Wow, honesty isn't one of your characteristics." "Gee, I might have to sue Loverboy for 6 years of child support. I'm sure the senator will want to support my children." "Please don't talk like this. How am I supposed to talk? I've been honest with you. I promised never to cheat on you. And I never have, even though you have accused me our whole married life. You, on the other hand, have been having an affair behind my back for at least 7 years. How am I supposed to talk? Andy, I don't know what to say right now. We'll talk when I come home. The only thing we'll do when you come home is get a divorce and have the children tested so your lover can claim paternity. Now go back and enjoy your affair, you deceitful fool. Just so you know, if the children are tested and are mine, I'm taking them from you." "No, you can't take my children from me." I hung up the phone. I wanted more information. I called Bob. He was back from his fishing trip. He usually only went once a year, but he had gone twice this year. Went a few days. "Bob, Andy here. I misplaced Trina's room number and thought you might have Maria's." He gave it to me and asked if there was a problem. No problem. Just something I wanted to ask her." "Okay, thanks, Bob." I called Maria's room and she answered. "Hello? Maria, this is Andy. Andy, Trina isn't in right now. I can have her call you." "Cut the bullshit, Maria. I know where she is, who she's with, and what she's doing." "I don't know what you're talking about." I knew she was trying to call my bluff, but I wasn't bluffing. Room 804, screwing Zach Carter. "Now you answer a few questions, or I'll ask your husband, Bob. Are you trying to blackmail me?" "Blackmail? Heck no. I just figured that if Trina has been having an affair for 7 years and you have been covering for her, that you'd be getting some on the side yourself. You either tell me what I want to know, I'll tell Bob about Trina, and you can talk to him about why you've covered it up." "What do you want to know, Andy? So have you also cheated on Bob? Do you have an old boyfriend too?" "Please don't tell Bob. I did it the first 2 times and felt so guilty about it that I don't stay in the same room with Trina anymore. It was a big mistake, and I truly regret it." "Who was it with, Maria?" "Please, Andy. I told you I did it. And I regret it. It was some friend of Zach's. I want to forget about it." "Don't tell Bob. Tell me everything you know about Trina and Zach, and I promise I won't tell Bob about our conversation." "Okay, I'll trust you. You don't have a choice, but I do keep my promises. Trina found out Zach worked for the same agency. She started having an affair with him. As far as I know, it was only during these seminars. What did she say about him? And I'll know if you're lying, and our deal will be off." She said she always loved him and made a mistake marrying you. I'm sorry, Andy, but you said you wanted the truth. She couldn't wait for the seminars so she could be with him. They hardly ever went to the meetings, but stayed in their room most of the time and came out for dinner. What about my kids, Maria? Tell me what you know. Oh God, Andy, I don't know what to say. She hoped that all 3 kids were Zach's. It was her way of getting even with you. It didn't make any sense. I never understood why she wanted you to raise Zach's kids. So my kids are really Zach's? I don't know. She always hoped they would be, but as far as I know, she really doesn't know. Needless to say, Maria, Trina, and I will be getting divorced, and I will have the kids tested to see who's gonna support them. I'll keep my promise to you, and not tell Bob about this conversation. On any other matters, I wouldn't lie to him. As far as friends go, I never want to see you at my house again. I needed someone to talk to. I wanted to talk to Mel so bad, but I didn't think it would be wise. I had no idea how Trina would be dealing with this situation. The last thing I wanted was to get Mel involved in the mess. I called my sister Jen and asked her to come over. She sensed the urgency in my voice and said she would be right over. Jen and I talked about everything and different scenarios that might happen. I was fairly confused about what to do next. Now I understand why there is a temporary insanity plea. I would have killed both Zach and Trina if they had walked in my door at that moment. Jen and I both agreed that we should call Zach's wife. She deserved to know what a creep she had for a husband. I looked at Zach's profile and found his home number. I called it, but got a secretary. I asked to speak to Mrs. Carter. There was a pause, and then I was told to hold for a minute. Who is this? A woman asked. I'm Andrew Connors from Ohio. Are you Mrs. Carter? Yes, I am, but I go by Senator Conroy. My husband's name is Carter? Well, Senator, your husband is currently in a hotel having an affair with my wife. I thought you should know. Darn him. He said he wasn't seeing that married woman anymore. Is her name Trina? Yes, it is. Trina Connors from Ohio. His high school girlfriend, soon to be my ex-wife. Mr. Connors, thank you for making me aware of the situation. I cannot talk right now, but I will have my people contact you in the next few days. I don't want to talk to your people. I will talk to you personally if you like. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to make you aware of your husband's infidelity. I hung up the phone. Apparently she already knew about her husband's cheating. It made me wonder if Trina was his only affair. Well, now I would have to sit back and wait for Trina to show up and start the divorce proceedings. The hardest thing would be having my kids tested to see if I was their biological father. What if they weren't mine? I had raised each of them from day one. They were my family and my life. Around midnight, there was a knock on my door. I was sitting on the couch thinking about my problems. I had put my 3 kids to bed, hugging and kissing each one of them, wondering if they were mine. I wanted a drink so bad, but with the liver operation, I wasn't allowed alcohol for at least a year. I was startled by the knocking and I heard it again. I looked out and saw a police officer. I opened the door. I'm Officer Bates of the Sheriff's Department. Are you Andrew Connors, the husband of Trina Connors? The officer asked. Yes, officer, I am. What's going on here? I'm sorry to inform you that your wife was killed in a car accident in rural Illinois. I was asked by the Illinois Post to inform you of her death. I was shocked. One minute I hated her guts and wanted to kill her. Now she was dead. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I wanted to wake up, hoping I was sleeping, and that the last couple of days had been a bad dream. But it wasn't a dream and I wasn't sleeping. What happened, officer? Officer, are you sure it was her? Maybe there was a mistake. I was just mumbling on. I'm sorry, Mr. Connors. There is no mistake. It was an auto accident, and they were both killed. According to the report I received, their car went off the road, over an embankment, and hit a tree. Both occupants were dead at the scene. You said they... Was Maria the other person in the car? No, sir. It was Zach Carter. Did you know him? I was stunned. I thought it was probably Trina and Maria coming home early, but it wasn't. It meant that she still spent the day and evening with Zach, even after she had talked to me. I knew I had to answer the officer. Yes, he was from the company's Chicago office. I haven't seen him in years. What time did the accident occur? Around 7 o'clock, give or take a few minutes. It took us a while to gather information and get in touch with you. Again, Mr. Connors, I'm sorry to have been the one to tell you, but we wanted you to be one of the first to know. If you contact the Chicago Sheriff's Office tomorrow, they might be able to tell you more. Good night, sir. Thank you, officer, I said as I closed the door. At this point I was numb. I felt hate, loss, love, disgust, and even fear. Fear of what to do next. I had 3 little children who were fast asleep, and tomorrow I had to tell them their mom was killed. I couldn't go to sleep, and I really didn't want to call anyone at this time of night. I knew tomorrow would be one of the worst days of my life. I had to face reality. Trina was dead, and I had 3 kids to care for who might not even be mine. I wouldn't wish this situation on anyone. I must have dozed off in the chair and was awakened by the phone at 7 in the morning. The caller ID said personal call. I answered it. Mr. Andrew Connors, the voice said. Yes, it's he. Who's calling? 1 second, sir, the voice said. Then I heard a female voice, one I had heard yesterday. Mr. Connors, this is Senator Conroy? I mean Janice Conroy. Under the circumstances, I would prefer to be called by my given name. I know you've been notified of the accident. I'm so sorry for your loss, but I needed to talk to you. I need a big favor. Mrs. Conroy, you lost your husband also. I know the situation doesn't look good for either of us. What is the favor you need? So you want me to lie and say it didn't happen? No, of course not. I just don't want you to tell the media about the affair. You will get a few calls. I can take care of it at this end and let it quietly go away, but I know someone will look for a story here. It wouldn't be good for either of us. Mrs. Conroy, I'll keep the affair personal. If you do 2 things for me, what is it you want? I'll do it if I can. I want the real report on this accident, the one that gets hidden by high-profile people. The other thing I want is a copy of Zach's DNA. You know what that's for. I'll do what I can. I'll expect it shortly after the funerals. Please don't mistake me for some type of sissy. I want to know. No, make that I need to know, the truth at any cost. It'll get you what you want. I just hope you're a man of your word, and keep the matter under wraps. I always keep my promises, Janice. Always. Okay then, I'll get the reports to you as soon as possible. And thank you. I hung up the phone and made a pot of coffee. I knew it was still early, but I called Jen and told her about the accident. It took her by surprise, but she said she would be right over. My mom and dad always got up early, and I let them know as well. Now for the harder part. I called Trina's mom and dad. Her dad answered the phone and I broke the sad news to him. I explained as much as I could and told them that she and Zach had just gone out for dinner and Zach was taking her back to her hotel when the accident occurred. They asked me to keep in touch, and of course, I said I would. My kids got up and I fixed them some breakfast, and after Jen showed up, we took the 3 kids into the living room and told them we had some very sad news. Renee, Ashley, you will have to be very brave. Mommy died and will not be coming home. The tears just welled up in their eyes and they started crying. Of course, when little Andy saw his sisters crying, he started crying as well. It was the hardest thing, watching my kids cry. I held each one of them and let them cry it out. I was trying to be strong for them, but I was crying too. I was holding the girls and Jen was holding Andy. We did our best to try and answer their questions. There was a knock on the door and Jen just yelled, "Come in." It was Mel. "I'm so sorry to hear what happened," she said, tears in her eyes. Ashley ran to Mel and climbed on her lap as Mel sat down and gently rocked my youngest daughter. Andrea sat next to her mother. "How did you know?" I asked Mel. Jen spoke up. "I called her after you called me. I hope you don't mind." Of course not. I was just surprised. After the kids calmed down some, Andrea offered to take them to their rooms and play games with them. It was a godsend, because the phone started ringing shortly after they went to their room. It was news people and reporters. They all said the same thing. "We just have a few questions." I was getting mad and started hanging up on them. Jen said she'd take care of the phone calls. She talked to the next reporter. "Listen, I don't understand why all you news people keep bothering us. My brother just lost his wife and has 3 young children here to raise. We're not celebrities and would like our privacy. I don't care that Zach Carter is married to a politician. Politician in another state. It has nothing to do with us. Why don't you bother her if you consider it news? We turned on the news and saw a report that a local woman was killed in Chicago last night. She was with the husband of State Senator Janice Conroy. Senator Conroy stated that the woman, Trina Connors from Ohio, was an associate of Zach Carter, and they were returning from dinner. She had spoken to her husband earlier that evening and said she would not be able to join them. She is deeply saddened by the loss of her husband and has sent condolences to Mr. Connors and his family in Ohio. We will provide more details on this story as they become available. We knew why we were receiving calls. I think we should have a prepared statement for these reporters and continue to repeat it until they leave us alone. I'll take the next call, Jen, I said. Hello? Yes, this is Andrew Connors, and look, I don't understand all these calls. I'll just tell you what I know. Zach Carter and my wife Trina worked for the same travel agency, but in different states. They have periodic meetings to discuss travel opportunities. They simply had dinner and were on their way back to her place when the accident happened. The person kept asking questions. Yes, I spoke to my wife that morning and knew she was going to dinner. They were friends from high school. I personally knew Zach. We all went to school together. It was a terrible accident, and she will be greatly missed by me and our 3 children. If you have further questions, I suggest you contact the senator. I hung up after that. Jen and I took turns answering the phone. We knew the calls wouldn't stop until we said something to them. The phone was ringing non-stop. I'm glad Jen had called Mel. It would have been difficult to watch the kids and constantly answer the phone and door. We did receive a few calls from concerned neighbors and friends. They were hard enough to deal with, let alone all the other calls. Like we didn't have enough problems. Lawyer after lawyer called us asking if we wanted representation in case of a lawsuit. We simply told them we weren't interested and that we weren't planning on suing anyone. If we did want representation, it wouldn't be from an ambulance chaser. Later in the day, the calls seemed to decrease. Mel made us all some lunch. Our neighbors had brought over food and Mel set it all up for us. I hadn't had much chance to talk to her, but I was grateful she was there. One strange thing about a death in the family is that a lot of people bring you food when you have no appetite. At least, we didn't have to worry about cooking anything. There was a knock at the door, and I thought it was another neighbor, but it was a television reporter. Mr. Connors, can we speak with you? Said a woman with a microphone and a cameraman behind her. Who the heck do you think you are, coming to my house the day after I lost my wife? I lost my wife, and for what? Some darn gossip? No need to swear, Mr. Connors. This is for television. Fudge your darn television. I lost my wife and my 3 little children have lost their mother, and all you can think about is news. Maybe you can get pictures of her body splattered all over the screwing highway and get 1 or 2 more readers. You make me sick, Mr. Connors. We just want the truth. No, you did it. You want some screwing lies to sell to your listeners. I'll give you the truth, and see if you're happy with it. My wife and Zach were high school sweethearts many years ago. Were they lovers, Mr. Connors? Lovers? They were 16-year-old kids. Do you classify that as lovers? You're one sick person. My wife and I got married and have 3 children ages 2, 4, and 6. She works full-time in a travel agency. You tell me when she had time for a torrid affair with an old boyfriend 2 states away. But she was with him. Yes, they had a business meeting in Chicago and went to dinner. A lot of old friends have dinner together. I talked to her earlier in the day, and if you listened to your own TV station, you would have heard that Senator Conroy was going to go to dinner with them. All you want is some darn gossip and try to ruin lives. Right then, little Andy was looking out the storm door. Look at the door at my son. Tell him how you think his mother is a fool, and all she wanted was an affair with an old boyfriend. Tell my little boy that his mother didn't love him, that all she could think about was wanting to have love with another woman's husband. I wanted to say fudge so bad, but out of respect to my kids being present at the door, I didn't. You disgust me. I've said that I wouldn't wish this type of situation on my worst enemy, but in your case, I might make an exception. Let some reporter tear your life apart with a lot of lies and allegations and let you live with it. One last thing. If I hear any lies about my wife or family on your news network, you can take it to the bank that I'll sue your butt along with your network. You weren't invited here, and no celebrity lives here. Now get the heck off my property. When I walked back in the house, I picked up my boy and just hugged him, and he hugged me back. Jen smiled at me. She knew I didn't actually tell the total truth, but hopefully the reporters didn't know it. Things seemed to calm down after that. The kids were back playing in the room, and Jen and Mel were talking about funeral arrangements. They would be shipping back Trina's body within the next 2 days, and we wanted the funeral as soon as possible. The women told me they would take care of all the arrangements, which was fine with me. I was lost when it came to things like that. I walked to the bathroom, and when I came out, I glanced in the room where the girls were playing. I overheard Ashley talking to Andrea. "I miss my mommy," Ashley said. "I know how you feel, Ash. I miss my daddy as well." His name was Eric. He wasn't my real daddy, but I do miss him. He was always around. "Why did he leave you?" asked Ashley. "Because he wasn't my real dad. Daddy shouldn't leave their little girls." "It's not nice," replied Ashley. "It's okay. I have another daddy now, and it's my real daddy, and he's your daddy too." "Ashley, do you think your mommy will be my mommy too? Since we are sharing the same daddy, why can't we share the same mommy?" It brought tears to my eyes when I heard my little girl say that. I didn't want them to know I was listening. "I'll tell you what, Ash. You talk with your dad, and I'll talk with my mom, and we'll see what happens. No matter what, I'll always be your big sister, and you can always come to me." I watched as Andrea gave Ashley a hug. The calls had pretty much stopped the next couple of days. The news reporter who came to our house only showed the nice part of our talk, saying what a wonderful wife and mother Trina was. I guess the station didn't want to take a chance on a libel suit. There was also a big divorce with a Hollywood couple, which took over the news. Our accident case was now becoming old news. Jen and Mel did a great job with the funeral arrangements. We had Trina laid out one night and the burial the following day. I couldn't believe the people that showed up. Jen and I stood by the coffin and greeted everyone who came to pay their respects. Mel sat on a couch over to the side with the 4 kids. She wanted to stay out of the way. Every time I looked over at her, she had a different one of my kids on her lap. One minute they would be crying and the next laughing. Every once in a while, one of them would come up and stand with me. When we paid our last respects to Trina before they closed the coffin, we all cried. So sad and yet so stupid. She could have had a great life, but was looking for the greener grass. Mel asked her church to set up a luncheon for all who attended the funeral. It was a wonderful meal, and gave us a last chance to talk with many of our friends. I even thanked Maria and Bob for coming. I talked to Maria for a minute and said that I hope she learned a lesson from Trina's death. She had a good man, and should do everything she could to keep her marriage intact. She hugged me and thanked me for keeping our secret. I really did hope she learned from Trina's mistake. In the days that followed, Mel and Jen asked what things of Trina's we wanted to keep. I told them I didn't have any idea. I told them to give all the jewelry and keepsakes to the girls. Most they put away for future use, but gave the girls enough to play grown-up in. Mel remarked what beautiful clothes Trina had. I told her she could keep and wear whatever she wanted, seeing they were similar in size. If looks could kill, sweet Mel would have killed me on the spot. Jen started laughing. "You stupid, stupid man. You want to give your deceased wife's clothes to your old girlfriend?" "I don't think so, little brother." She said they were nice. I was just trying to be agreeable and let her have what she wanted. What she wanted? Women. I'll never understand them. What should we do with them? Jen looked at Mel like I wasn't even there. "Let's have a garage sale and sell all the clothes. They should bring a decent price." So that was the next thing they were gonna do. The phone rang, and I heard a familiar voice on the other end. After hanging up, I asked the girls if they could take the kids to the park or somewhere for a couple of hours. I had someone stopping by to talk to me and we needed to be alone. I told them I would explain it to them later. After they had left, there was a knock on the door. It was Senator Janice Conroy and her driver. "Please come in. I've been waiting for you." She had her driver sit on the porch and came inside. I was surprised at her appearance. She was a very nice-looking woman, but was probably in her 50s. I had no idea that she was that old since Zach was our age. "Mr. Connors, I was in Columbus, Ohio on some state business and thought I'd take this short trip to give you the information you requested." She handed me a manila envelope, which she said contained the unofficial accident report as well as Zach's DNA chart. "Would you like a cup of coffee, Mrs. Conroy?" "Please, for today just call me Janice, and a cup of coffee would be nice." "Just a little cream, please. I want to thank you for being discreet about the affair. Nothing good would have come out of it if the truth were known. I got a call from the insurance company, and they asked me to talk to you about settling the matter." "Janice, I don't want your money. I just want it over with, so my family and I can go on with our lives." "Andy, you will get dozens of calls from lawyers saying they can get you millions of dollars if you go with their firms. The truth is, the case can stay open for years while they delve deeper and deeper into the case. The insurance company doesn't want that to happen, and neither do I. They made you an offer. If you accept it, then the case is over. You won't be bothered anymore since the case is settled." "What's this offer you keep mentioning? Is it your money?" "As I have mentioned, I just want it over. It's the insurance company's money. They will give you $100,000 for each of your kids and deposit it into a trust account. It will be payable after they are 18 years of age, and you would be the custodian of the account. The kids will only get money when you say so until they are 25. Then they will be in charge of their own accounts." "Why are they offering this money? Was there some type of wrongdoing?" No, it's just that everyone today is sue crazy. It's easier to sue someone than go find work. This just closes the account. They will also pay for any medical expenses since the accident, such as hospital bills, ambulance fees, and any other charges they may come up with. So you'll get $300,000 plus the payment for medical. It's $400,000 plus medical. I have 4 kids, not 3. My other daughter lives with her mother, but if I'm to accept the offer, she will also receive her share. Except this, she should receive a share also. I'm sorry I wasn't aware of it. So I'll make sure you get enough for all 4 children. So if we are done here, I'd like... Janice, this is probably the last time I'll see you. Can you tell me about you and Zach and why you let this go on after finding out? I guess so. You deserve to know. I met Zach while he was in college. He was a tough, rough-looking guy. I was asked to teach a political science class, and we became friends. As you can see, I'm 25 years older than Zach. It was fun at first, being with a younger man and teaching him the ways of love. I know you've heard of trophy wives. Well, Zach was my trophy husband. I had this good-looking stud on my arm at all the parties. At first, Zach loved the limelight, the center of attention, but when he found out it was about me and not him, he became restless. He asked me to buy him the travel agency. I bought it, and I own it. He managed it. He took courses on the travel industry since he had to major in something. He actually did all right, but couldn't keep his hands off other women. Why didn't he divorce me and do his own thing? Money and power. I had both. He had neither. I gave him everything he wanted within reason. He had nothing in his name, not even the car he wrecked. If he would have left me at any time, he would have had nothing. People get used to the life which he led. He met your wife at one of the conferences around 7 or so years ago. It was a few years later when I caught wind of them together and gave him an ultimatum. He either stopped playing around, especially with a married woman, or I'd make sure he never did it again. He seemed to stop, or at least hide it pretty well, until I heard from you. Just so you know, he has had other lovers. Most could be either bought or scared off. I wasn't sure how to approach your wife since he seemed to see her every couple of years. What is the report going to tell me? I have a feeling that there was foul play. The unofficial report stated that Zach's penis was bitten off. He was receiving a blowjob at the time of the accident. Your wife didn't have any underwear on and had a vibrator in her private area. I had this all covered up and would like to keep it that way. The witness said a black SUV pushed the rear quarter panel of Zach's vehicle, causing it to spin and go out of control. It then went over an embankment, rolling numerous times, and stopped when it hit a tree. The official report said that the witness was far behind the other vehicles and wasn't sure if it was hit or not by the SUV. Janice, did you have them killed? Me personally, no. There are powers higher up than me, and I can't speak for them, and I really don't want to know. I really did love Zach in my own way. In a sense, he was my boy toy, and it was fun having him around. Well, Andrew Connors, this is probably the last time we'll speak. What does the report say? The names were removed in case it fell into the wrong hands, so we can be protected. I apologize for your loss, and I will submit the insurance papers tomorrow. Thank you for being discreet. After Janice left, I opened the envelope, and the report was exactly as she described. Trina was truly infatuated with Zach. Now I know where she learned her various techniques of lovemaking, and who she was thinking of at the time. It wasn't me. The other report was a comprehensive analysis of Zach's DNA. Janice kept her promises. I couldn't help but wonder if she had any involvement in the accident. Maybe it's best if I never find out. When everyone returned, I informed the ladies about my visitor. They were surprised when I revealed who it was. I explained our agreement and how the senator took the time to honor her side. The ladies requested to read the report. Are you sure you want to read this? I know you're curious, but this is some heavy stuff. You won't like what you read. Mel looked at me and said, Andy, because I care for you, I'll overlook the nosy part. You can't go through life alone. You need someone to share it with, in case you ever need to talk about it. She kindly smiled at me afterwards. They were saddened after reading the report. Like me, they hoped that maybe, just maybe, Trina felt some remorse after our conversation that morning. I shared some of the things Janice Conroy had told me. My sister Jen said, I know this is a terrible thing to say, but maybe Trina's death was a blessing. How much worse would it have been if things continued with the kids in the middle of it all? I knew she was right, but she was the only one who said it out loud. That was just how Jen was, never afraid to speak her mind. After she left, I sat at the table and reread the report as well as Zach's DNA report. Mel joined me at the table. What are you gonna do with it? She asked, pointing to Zach's DNA report. I have an appointment at the clinic tomorrow to have the kids tested and find out if Zach is their biological father. Don't do it, Andy. For your sake and the kids' sake, don't do it. I have to know, Mel. I have to know. Why? Why is it so important now? What if I'm not the biological father? What am I gonna do? Give the kids away? Send them to a children's home? Raise them with resentment in my heart? Please, Andy, listen to me. You are their father. You've been there since day one for each of them. You were there for their birth, you changed their dirty diapers, but most importantly, you've always been there for them. You are the one they call Daddy, not anyone else. Don't put those thoughts into their minds and hearts. Please promise me you'll think about it, Andy. Think about your kids. Okay, I'll think about it tonight. If we go, I'll stop by your place tomorrow. Place tomorrow after we're finished. Mel kissed me lightly on the lips. She felt so good. She called to Andrea and they went home. I did as I promised and gave it some heavy thought. It was mid-afternoon the next day when I pulled up in front of Mel's house. The kids got out and ran to her. Andrea was in school, but Mel told them they could play in her room. Renee was supposed to be in school, but I had already called her off the day before. You did it, didn't you? Mel spoke. I'm sorry, but I promised the kids, I responded. What? You did it for the kids? What are you talking about? I promised the kids I'd take them to McDonald's for lunch, and I keep my promises. She smiled. You didn't go through with it then? You know, the other thing, not lunch. No, I thought about what you said. They are my kids and always will be. I want to keep it that way. So what happens now? I was sitting on the couch and Mel came over and sat on my lap. This is the closest we'd been since the funeral, other than the occasional kiss. It felt so nice being close to her. She was a remarkable woman. You grieve for a while and we start dating, and then you ask me to marry you, and I say, yes, and we live happily ever after. Just like in the storybook, she had the prettiest smile on her face. I was smiling too. What if I don't want to marry you? What then? Then I'll just live with you. I've already lost you once. It isn't gonna happen again. Besides, I hear the kids have been talking. They like me, and I love them. What about love? Are you any good? I started laughing. Honey, with you it will be more than just love. It will be love, and it will be great. Mel was laughing now too. About that time, Andrea came home from school. She saw Mel sitting on my lap and started smiling. Andrea yelled for the other kids. Renee, Ashley, Andy, come in here quickly. There's something you gotta see. Mel stayed put. She wasn't budging an inch. The kids came in with Andy, of course, being the last one. They smiled at Mel. Ashley spoke first. Does this mean you will be our mommy since our mommy died? Mel got off my lap with tears in her eyes and went and knelt in front of Ashley and hugged her. Honey, I'll gladly be your mommy. Your other mommy will always be with you in your heart, and I will be here to take care of you. Andy wanted to be hugged also, so he walked over and Mel put her arm around the little fella. Renee came over to me. Daddy, when are you getting married and where will we live? Well, honey, first I want to make sure that you kids want us to get married. Of course we do, Daddy. What a stupid question. We love Mel and you're Andrea's daddy already? We would just like to know where we are going to live. Honey, I haven't even asked Mel to get married yet. Well, do it, Daddy. Do it right now. All the kids started yelling. Do it, Daddy, even little Andy. I was laughing and Mel was almost crying. I walked over to her and took her by the hand as she stood up. I knelt down in front of her and said, Mel, the kids and I all love you. Will you be their mommy and my wife? I have to buy you a ring to make it official. I wasn't exactly planning on this today, but I cannot think of a better time with better witnesses. Before I was barely finished, the kids were saying, answer him, Mommy, answer him, how? It was funny that even before she answered, the kids were calling her Mommy. How long do I get to think about this, kids? After all, this is a big step, replied Mel with a smile on her face. 1 minute, Mom, replied Andrea. We both know you wanted this your whole life. Oops, there goes another secret. Andrea looked over and smiled at me. Mel tried to look serious, but was doing a poor job of it. After careful consideration, I decided to say yes, I'll marry you, Andrew Connors. The kids were jumping up and down and said, kiss her, Daddy, kiss her, and seal the deal. I did just that and it felt so good. Kids, just so you know, it will be a while before we get married. We have a lot of things to do first, but we will see each other most every day, replied Mel. She didn't want to do all the explaining of waiting after a death to the kids. She did tell them they could call her Mommy if they wanted to. After the kids went back to play in Andrea's room, I looked over at a smiling Mel. That went well, she laughed. If we're going to be dating, will we be in love? If so, can we do it on the first date? I asked. For you, sweetheart, anytime you want. We don't even need to have a date. After saying that, she walked over to the phone and called my sister Jen. What was that all about? I asked. Jen is coming over to take the kids to the movies. They wanted to see the kids' movie Happy Feet, and Jen's taking them. Honey, I have a question for you. If you and I will be staying here and sealing a deal we made earlier. Before I could say anything, she called the kids back into the room. Kids, Aunt Jen and Uncle Ralph are coming over to take you all to see Happy Feet. The kids all started jumping up and down. Daddy and I have some business to attend to, but we will be here when you get back. You be good for Aunt Jen and Uncle Ralph, do you hear me? Yes, Mom, we all hear you, replied a smiling Andrea. Jen and Ralph showed up a few minutes later. Ashley ran up to them as soon as they stepped in the door. Mom and Dad are getting married and you can come to the wedding, but we don't know when it is yet. Jen looked over at us. Kinda sudden, isn't it, guys? She was smiling, which meant she gave her approval. Renee spoke. Yeah, Dad proposed in front of all of us. It was neat. They kissed and everything to seal the deal. Everything, replied a smiling Ralph until he got elbowed by Jen. Well, congratulations, said Jen. We better get the kids to the movies so you can finish your unfinished business. We'll stop and pick up a pizza on the way home, so you have about 3 hours. Hope you can complete your business by then. Why are you laughing, Uncle Ralph? Asked Ashley. I was just thinking about the dancing penguin we are going to see. Should be a pretty good movie. After they left, I played dumb and asked what unfinished business we had to do. Mel pulled me into her bedroom. I've waited over 11 years to hold you in my arms again. Please make love to me, but don't forget, we're on a 3-hour clock. Honey, for the first round I'll only need 3 minutes. We both started laughing as we both disrobed. We made it through the Christmas holidays. We spent a lot of time together. We were a family, only we weren't married yet, and still stayed at our own homes. We were trying to wait for as long as possible, but the kids wanted us to marry sooner than later. After the holidays, the kids got together and asked if they could have a big birthday party for Valentine's Day. Angie smiled. We started calling her Angie since the kids did. We asked them how they got Angie out of Andrea, and they told us they already had an Andy, their little brother. So they chose Angie. It didn't bother Andrea, so it didn't bother us. Dad, the other 3 kids have birthdays the week of Valentine's Day. Mine, of course, is in March, but that's okay. We want to get you and Mom married, so we decided to have a big combination birthday wedding party for all of us. Since you and Mom don't need any wedding presents, the guests can bring presents for Renee, Ash, and Andy. For me too, if they don't mind me getting them a month early. What do you think? I'm just the talker for the group. All of us kids decided that this would be a great idea. Mel and I couldn't help laughing. All these kids getting together and making these plans for us. We believed Angie. Besides, the other kids were all with her waiting for our answer. The problem we had is what to do about it without hurting their feelings. Angie, I know you and the others have put a lot of thought into this planned party. I think we should see what your mom has to say about it. I had no idea what to say to the kids. Just looking at their faces and their look of hope was so cute. I had to pass the buck to Mel. Mel looked at me, and then back at the faces of the kids. She knew I threw it in her lap. I tried not to look at her while she searched for an answer. Mel spoke. I'm a little surprised at you kids. Having a big birthday party is one thing. Your dad and I getting married is alright too, but expecting people to all come to a party and expect them to bring all of you presents is not right. I thought we taught you to put others first. I am a little ashamed of you using our wedding to get yourselves presents. The kids put their little heads down. It looked like Mel said the right thing to them. Renee said, Mom, if we forfeit the presents, can we have the birthday party instead? Can we have the birthday party and still get married, Dad? Mel looked over at me for help. I tried to keep a straight face. Kids, since your dad is leaving it up to me, I'll agree to the birthday party, she said, then looked over at me. I also agree to the wedding. We'll do it as a family event, but we are not asking our guests to bring presents for you. I was taken totally by surprise. I honestly didn't think she would agree to the family event. Mel was full of surprises. The kids were jumping up and down. They hugged Mel, and then came over and hugged me. We had a month and a half to get everything done. I was back at work, which left most of the planning up to Mel. Of course, Jen was there to help her. The 2 of them became best friends. They were closer than most sisters. The ladies rented the hall in the church, and since Mel was a member, she had no problem getting the church and pastor for the weekend closest to Valentine's Day. Our color scheme was red and white, with lots of hearts. Again, the women of the church offered to cook the dinner. We insisted on paying for all the food and the cake. It was going to be a small wedding, with Jen as the matron of honor, and her husband Ralph as my best man. We also had 2 young attendants, a flower girl and a ring bearer. I'm sure you can guess who they were. I wore a nice suit, and Mel looked like an angel in her blue dress. When the music started, tears streamed down my face. First came my son, staggering down the aisle with the ring attached to the pillow. He was followed by my daughter Andrea, dressed in a blue dress, just like Mel's. Renee, also in a blue dress, came next. Then Ashley, the flower girl. The wedding march began, and Mel was led down the aisle by her dad. When she saw the tears in my eyes, I could see she had the same emotions. I don't know why, but I was a nervous wreck. I was marrying the love of my life, after years of turmoil with my first wife. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," and I heard the applause, I realized the church was full of people. As I glanced at the crowd, I saw many old friends and family members. Until that moment, I was completely focused on Mel. When we went to the hall, there was a big banner that read, "Congratulations to the Connors family on their recent nuptials." A second banner read, "Happy birthday to Renee, Ashley, and Andy Jr. Also happy birthday to Andrea, whose birthday isn't until March." When the kids saw the banners, they were overjoyed. There was also a stack of birthday cards for each of them. We had let everyone know that it was a combined birthday and wedding celebration when we sent out the invitations. It was the best Valentine's Day anyone could ask for. For our honeymoon, we decided to wait until June when the kids were out of school. We were out of school and took all the kids with us to Disney World. We got adjoining rooms, and the kids shared 2 double beds while we had a king-size bed for ourselves. We spent our days playing with the kids, and at night, we closed the door and made love. The kids couldn't understand why we were so tired every morning. When we returned home, our friend Jen stopped by and told us she was expecting her first child. We were overjoyed for her and her husband Ralph. We knew they had been trying for a while, and we were so happy they succeeded. They had a son, and now our son Andy would have a little buddy to play with in the years to come. We made the decision to sell my house and move into Mel's place. Both houses were bigger and older, but well maintained. It was better to get away from the things that Trina had bought. We held an auction and sold most of the furnishings, including the house. The kids were thrilled to get new bedroom suites. When the insurance checks arrived, we put each child's money into their own account for their future. That was the last we heard about the accident. We did read that Senator Conroy was re-elected by a wide margin. It seemed that there was a big sympathy vote. It just goes to show that life may throw you a lot of curveballs, but every once in a while, if you hit it just right, you'll hit a home run. And that's exactly what happened for us. I never did have the kids tested, but I did keep Zach's information in a safe place. Maybe someday when I'm older, I'll have the courage to get the comparison test done. But for now, all I need is for one of my kids to run in and give me a big hug, calling me daddy, to know that I made the right decision.